The briefing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2498 would provide for a new distinctive license plate, the First City of Kansas license plate. The plate will be subject to the $250 initial plate commitment and payment of up to $5,000 in development costs, as is currently required for plates under law. Initial registrations and subsequent renewals would be made through either the county treasurer or the local use authorization statement, and an annual local use royalty payment fee in the amount of between $25 and up to $100 to be determined by the Leavenworth County Historical Society would be required for the plates, and such fees would go to the Leavenworth County Historical Society. And with that, I'd be happy to stand.
Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the bill was introduced by who?
It says on the bill itself, it says request, it went through Committee on Transportation, but it was requested by Representative Proctor.
I see it on there. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Committee, further questions? Well, we'll turn our attention to the first proponent, Carol Ayers. Welcome to the Transportation Committee.
Well, good morning, and thank you for letting me come to speak with you today. As your chairman said, I'm a proponent for HB 2498. And I would like to thank Representative Pat Proctor for carrying the bill to the House, and also to Jeff Pittman, Senator Jeff Pittman, for supporting it here in the Senate. Leavenworth, the first city in Kansas, settled in 1854, is the most historical city in the state, hands down. No one else can touch us. We have more history than anybody else. We were a key player in the border wars and in the forming of the state constitution. We were the jumping off point for pioneers who came up the Missouri River, got off on a steamboat, got off, purchased their oxen, their wagons, and all from our large freighting firm, Russell, Majors, and Waddell, and set out to the west on the Oregon or Santa Fe Trail. Lincoln gave his first campaign speech for the presidency in Leavenworth in 1859. And John Wilkes Booth stood on the same stage 4 years later and acted in a Shakespearean tragedy. Leavenworthians thought he was wonderful. He would go back to Washington in a few months, assassinate Lincoln. Buffalo Bill and Wild Bill Hickok rode our streets, along with many other famous and infamous people of the city and of the day. Leavenworth in 1859 was the largest city between St. Louis and San Francisco. We had over 10,000 people. We had a large manufacturing district, and we were the place to be. The Carroll Mansion Museum, dating to the 1880s and listed on the National Registry of Historic Properties, is the oldest museum in Leavenworth County. It is a big draw for tourism and researchers. We house many one-of-a-kind artifacts, but the most significant is our 30,000 glass plate negatives taken by pioneer photographers. It is considered a national treasure, and we have many researchers come to look and copy pictures. We're always looking for ways, we're always, lost my place. We're always looking for ways to market who and where we are. A license plate traveling around the area and even out of the state is a great way to get people interested in history and to come visit us. We are located next to a large metropolitan area, making us an ideal one-day trip for large numbers of tourists. This year, we are celebrating two significant anniversaries: 60 years for the donation of the Carroll Mansion from the Carroll family, and 70 years for the Leavenworth County Historical Society. Our mission is to collect, preserve, and share the history of Leavenworth City and County as it has been for all those 70 years. We take this duty very seriously. As we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, and future generations will stand on our shoulders, they need to know who we were and what we were thinking. We collaborate with 5 other museums in Leavenworth and Fort Leavenworth, the Chamber, and the Convention Visitors Bureau in our celebration of Leavenworth History Day. We are all working together to market Leavenworth and attract tourism. We receive no funds from the state, county, or city, only through grants. This is a way to increase our funding for marketing our museums and Leavenworth businesses. It is a win-win for Leavenworth. We will contract with Michael Young to do our historical design. As you probably know, he painted the Brown versus Board mural on the 3rd floor of the Capitol. You probably see it. I always go by and look at it when I'm here. So thank you for giving me the time to speak and for your support. I could entertain any questions you might have.
Committee questions, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for testifying. You made a comment about the artwork not being finished. Usually we do have the artwork before we move on this type of legislation, Mr. Chairman. So I would ask that maybe you could find or present something to the committee. Also, in the past, we have had legislation to add the counties to the license plate tag. Would it be acceptable for that amendment to go on this bill for you?
I don't know what it would do about space, having looked at license plates, and I'll just back up to your first part of your question. We were told KDOT, after the bill passed, would give us all of the definition of how we would do the plate. So that's what we will be waiting for before our artwork is finished.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman?
You may, I'll just help her out with that last question. It's Department of Revenue that has to approve all the artwork. We've done plates both ways. A lot of people go and get the design first and show it to us just out of courtesy. Others have we've allowed it, just like we didn't have one for the Chiefs.
And I didn't support that legislation either. Sending state money out of Kansas isn't always good for Kansas. So, Mr. Chairman, no, I just know that we've seen the artwork in the past. Wichita, the Life Amendment, and God We Trust, we saw all of those before we did move on the legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I'm sure we could bring it back to the committee if you would wish that, but otherwise we'll just follow the regular procedure.
Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony today. I see that the logo use royalty payment shall be paid to either the Leavenworth County Historical Society or simply to the county treasurer. And I guess this is probably a question for the revisor. Do we have other license plates that when a logo use royalty payment is made, that it doesn't go to a charity or to a historical society, but it goes directly to the county treasurer? Is that something else we see for other plates, or is this unusual?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That really goes to the collection of the local use royalty payment. The money itself will come back to the organization under paragraph subsection J. That's just a collection mechanism. They can either pay the county treasurer when they register the plate, or there's a mechanism for most plates that allow them to go to the entity, the organization, pay the organization directly, and then get a royalty or get the statement, and then take that to the county treasurer to get the plate. So if they go to the county treasurer just collects it, and then it gets redistributed to the entity.
Okay, thank you. So it's a collection mechanism to get it to the Leavenworth County Historical Society. And so the fees for the plate are usual, but then it's the extra for the logo use royalty payment of $25 to $100. Is that correct? And so is it any state money that's being used for the extra distinctive license plate? Because you're paying your logo use royalty payment, but that's in addition to your regular license plate and registration fees, correct?
That is correct. There is, not in the statute, but under the general distinctive license plate statute, there's a requirement that entities pay up to $5,000 in development costs. So whatever, assuming that the development costs wouldn't take more than that, that would cover the state's portion of that. But no, the additional fees go directly, the royalty payment goes directly to the entity.
And those are just the person who's signing up for the distinctive plates paying those extra fees. It's not tax dollars going to pay the $25 to $100.
Adam.
I mean, it's not from SGF or...
That is correct. That would be, the recipient of the plate would pay that on a yearly basis.
Okay, and then, so there was a question about the Kansas City Chiefs license plate bill, and that's the same mechanism as we saw in the Kansas City Chiefs license plate bill, right? You, the individual, decides to pay the logo use royalty in addition to your regular licensing fees, and so it's not SGF money that's being sent anywhere for the logo use royalty payment, because it's your own personal decision to do that. Is that right?
That is correct. That would be an entirely voluntary, getting these distinctive plates, paying the additional fee is voluntary payment by the recipient of the plate, and that's the money that goes to the entities.
Okay. Well, thank you for also educating us about the role that the city has played in the history of Kansas. I've visited Leavenworth and the fort there many times, so, and hearing about the generals that have come through, the military base there as well, and then some of our renowned persons that we've heard about in history class. So
Right.
it's neat to hear about that. So
Right.
thank you for
Yeah.
sharing.
There's many, many more. I could go on for hours.
Right. So, and thank you for preserving the history too, so that future generations can hear and know about it as well.
Yes.
So, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee, further questions? Senator Dietrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and this is actually, I think, a question for you. Do all of these distinctive license plates now have to be eligible for the cashless tolling process? The design piece?
Revenue takes a look at it. The Turnpike looks at the images and adds them into their system.
But it does have to fit those parameters, I guess is my question for cashless tolling. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you, thank you.
The parameters outlined by the Department of Revenue fit the cashless tolling, is how that works. Committee, further questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Proctor, were you wanting to say anything? No, sir. Appreciate you being in here and showing your support. Are there any further proponents of 2498? Any neutrals? Any opponents? We'll close the hearing on 2498. Turn our attention to open the hearing on House Bill 2500. Adam?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2500 would also provide for a new distinctive license plate, the Delta Waterfowl license plate. This plate would also be subject to the 250 initial plate commitment and payment up to $5,000 in development costs. Initial registrations and subsequent renewals would be made through either the county treasurer or the local use authorization statement. An annual royalty use payment fee in the amount of $25 and up to $100 to be determined by Delta Waterfowl would be required for the plate, and such fees would go to Delta Waterfowl. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Committee questions for Adam? See none, thank you. First up, via WebEx, we have Cyrus Hunter, Baird.
Morning, everybody. Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, Ranking Member, and members of the Senate Committee on Transportation. For the record, Cyrus Baird, again, I'm the Senior Director of Government Affairs for Delta Waterfowl. On behalf of our members of Delta, both in Kansas and on Central, I thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of House Bill 2500. Again, legislation that would allow for distinctive and selective waterfowl license statements. For some background, Delta Waterfowl is the largest organization in North America dedicated to ducks and duck hunters. We were founded in the famed Delta March in Manitoba, Canada in 1911. With our United States headquarters in Bismarck, North Dakota. We are guided by 4 distinct important pillars: habitat conservation, duck production, research and education, and hunter tourism, hunter recruitment, retention, and reactivation. We work to produce ducks through intensive management programs, conservation of breeding duck habitat in very popular regions in the United States and Canada. And we also conduct vital waterfowl research and promote and protect the continuing tradition of waterfowl hunting in North America. Throughout our organization's history, we amassed an impressive body of research that includes supporting more than 600 master's and doctoral students and publishing over 950 peer-reviewed studies, all on waterfowl breeding biology, waterfowl biology, waterfowl conservation. Delta's research has profoundly influenced how waterfowl, wetlands, and annual waterfowl harvest are done. We also provide biologists, technicians, and young scientists with the opportunity to gain hands-on experience and guidance to become leaders in the waterfowl, wetland, conservation community. We are extremely proud that many of our Delta and students are working for government and non-government agencies, as well as colleges and universities across the country. Delta has been at the forefront of hunter recruitment, retention, and reactivation across the country. We recognize the looming crisis that is the declining number of waterfowl hunters since the 1980s, that impact on state-based conservation funding in the American model of wildlife conservation. And we've been working ever since trying to be proactive in reducing the trends. With our flagship program like First Hunt, the largest waterfowl hunter recruitment program in North America, Delta and our volunteer staff leaders have introduced more than 80,000 people to the ways of duck and goose hunting. Chapters across the United States and Canada have hosted 263 First Hunt events, with a total of 12,367 today. Recognizing the cultural shift in the next generation of wildlife and conservation decision makers that have little to no understanding of background in hunting and the role that it plays in wildlife management, Delta created our University Hunting Program. The University Hunting Program provides students who will use hunting licenses and permit revenues to manage waterfowl first-hand experience and equips them with a more holistic view in hunting conservation. In 2023, we were able to conduct more than 100 UHP programs across the country, United States and Canada, and hosted 447 future wildlife decision makers. Our long-term goal there is to offer this program at 404 colleges and universities across the country. Delta Waterfowl is known as the Duck Hunters Organization. We are constantly working towards putting more ducks into the fall flight each and every year to extensive management and the breeding grounds in a very popular region. And we have led the way in helping to boost breeding waterfowl numbers through our efforts at the in-house program. In-house is one of the most cost-effective tools to help increase mallard production. Targeted areas with the highest mallard density, breeding density, Delta Waterfowl home houses consistently do domestic success to more than 60% in areas where ground nesting mallards typically achieve nest success of around 10%. Providing our organization with a unique license plate in the state of Kansas will help us showcase the great work that our members and volunteers do in the state and around the country. We appreciate Representative Buckingham and the House Transportation Committee giving this idea and this legislation consideration. To the House of Representatives for passing it on broad bipartisan support, and look forward to working with members of this committee and the Senate and the appropriate agencies after to have this bill realized. I appreciate the time to testify and be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Baird, what's the largest conservation project you've done in Kansas?
A good question. We have a number of chapters. I'm trying to think of the total amount of chapters that we have in the state of Kansas. And each chapter is unique in that they can do kind of their own take on giving back to the community. A lot of our chapters have done a fantastic job of getting the next generation of waterfowl hunters and conservationists out into the woods, into the water, working with veterans, youth, and demographics like that. I don't know off the top of my head in terms of the largest, impact footprint for projects that we've done, but I'd be happy to report back to what I find.
Committee questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Are there any other proponents? Are there any neutrals? Any opponents? That will close the hearing on House Bill 2500. Committee, I'd like to turn our attention to House Bill 2682. Adam, could you give us a briefing on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2682 would authorize the Division of Vehicles to adopt rules and regulations for participation in the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. And this clearinghouse is a program established by the FMCSA that contains information pertaining to violations of U.S. DOT controlled substances and alcohol testing programs for CDL holders. The HB 2682 further requires that prior to issuing or renewing a CDL or instruction permit, the Director of Vehicles shall query the clearinghouse or review the driver's information when notified by the clearinghouse of the status change up to the driver. The Director shall disqualify a driver's CDL within 60 days of receiving notice that a driver is in violation or non-compliance with clearinghouse requirements. Such disqualification will be removed upon notification from the FMCSA that the driver is no longer in violation of or non-compliance with the clearinghouse requirements, or if the Director is notified that the driver was erroneously identified as violating or non-complying with the clearinghouse. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Committee questions for Adam? Committee, what's your pleasure on this bill? Sounds like it's fairly non-controversial. Senator Cluse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just move that we pass that out favorably out of committee 2682 and put it on the consent calendar.
Motion to pass out favorably, put it on the consent, seconded by Senator Schallenberger. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. That one's on its way. Adam, can we take a look at 2499? It's a mobile telephone one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2499 will prohibit all drivers from using a mobile telephone while driving a vehicle through a school zone or a construction zone. Additionally, drivers younger than 18 years of age would be prohibited from using a mobile telephone when such individual is driving a vehicle. The bill provides exceptions allowing for the use of mobile devices by law enforcement acting within the scope of employment, a person operating a motor vehicle that is halted at a location where the vehicle is safely and lawfully stationary, and individuals who use hands-free devices. Additionally, individuals would be allowed to use a mobile telephone to report current or ongoing illegal activity to law enforcement, prevent imminent injury to a person or property, summon medical or other emergency assistance, or relay information between a transit or for-hire operator and the operator's dispatcher if the device is permanently affixed to the motor vehicle. Lastly, holding a mobile telephone when is restricted under the bill would constitute prima facie evidence of a violation. The fine for an individual found guilty of violating this section would be $60. Additionally, the bill requires that law enforcement give a warning citation to a driver who violates this new provision until July 1 of 2025.
Committee questions for Adam? Senator Dietrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We talked about this in committee when we had the hearing about the enactment date being a little bit too late. We'd like to capture, if this passes, the driver's training classes that would be taking or would be in session this summer. So I'd like to make a conceptual amendment, because we don't have it in writing, to amend the enactment date to publication in the Register.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Bowers. Further discussion on the bill? Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This would be a question for the reviser. Is it already in law that if an motor vehicle accident occurs, that under the charge of distracted driving, that would include being distracted while using a mobile telephone device?
That's something I have to look into. There generally isn't a distracted driving citation in Kansas as currently exists, to the extent that using a telephone would fit under a different violation.
Would it be inattentive driving?
We do have a no texting while driving violation, so that would, that's already in statute. So this would really be talking on the telephone would be the violation here, or, this captures more than that, but it would be, if someone's writing or texting on their phone, that would be the violation currently that exists.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I know we're on the amendment. Senator Schallenberger. On the amendment to bump the enactment date to the Register, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Amendment is adopted. Senator Schallenberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think if I recall right, during the discussion, there was questions about why 30 people in the House had opposed this. And I don't know if we've got answers to that or not. Apparently, we don't.
Jill, do you have something? I don't believe we've received anything. But
Jill Shelley, Legislative Research. I looked at the list of opponents as recorded in the House Journal and didn't see a real pattern to it.
Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, I guess my question would kind of go along with Senator Warren's. If we keep trying to define what distracted is, we're always going to be behind the curve. I mean, they could be eating. I've actually seen somebody going down the interstate reading a book. They should be able to be charged for that and not just because they weren't on their phone. So I'm afraid that we're trying to define. And so that I worry about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would think that would fall under inattentive driving if an officer saw him reading a book, but. Senator Warren, were you wanting to get an amendment to address some of your concerns?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity. And I can look into that. But if it's the will of the chair to go ahead and work the bill today, then.
I'd much rather have the amendment put on when we work it in the committee.
All right, then I will look into that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. With that, committee, see no further business before us. We're adjourned.